You guys, today the tea is coming at you execution style. So make sure you get you a snack, pull up a chair, and let's get into this video. It was brought to my attention that the state of Texas is scheduled to execute a man named Quintin Jones. Before we get into the discussion part of it, I want you guys to take a look at something with me.
A Texas death row inmate scheduled to be executed next week is pleading with Governor Greg Abbott to spare his life. Quintin Jones was convicted of killing his great-aunt back in 1999 when he was just 20 years old. His supporters say that Jones has turned his life around in prison and is remorseful. Omar Villafranca spoke to one of Jones's family members who hopes that this execution will be stopped. Omar, very interesting story. Good morning to you.
Good morning. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, Texas leads the nation in executions each year. And of the 6 people scheduled to die this year, 5 are here in Texas. And now Quintin Jones is making a final plea, hoping he is not one of them.
All I'm asking you to do, if you can find in your heart, Mr. Abbott, is to give me a second chance at life.
Should he get a second chance at life? I don't know. Should you get a second chance at hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing to my channel? You absolutely should.
Quintin Jones is set to be executed on May 19th. With the help of the New York Times, he made this video asking Texas Governor Greg Abbott to grant him clemency, which would stop his execution but keep him behind bars.
How is the person you are now different from the person you were when you got on death row 21 years ago?
More thoughtful. Love myself more.
Jones does not deny that in 1999, he brutally killed his great-aunt Berthena Bryant for $30 to buy drugs.
He had an unimaginably difficult childhood, addiction and neglect. He said to me, that his childhood didn't excuse what he did.
Writer Suleika Jawad wrote an opinion article this week advocating for Jones's clemency because she says he's transformed his life. For the last decade, she's been his pen pal and says he helped her get through cancer treatment.
What in those letters or in that interaction has changed your mind that he has changed?
I've had the privilege of witnessing his compassion, his thoughtfulness, and I'm not the only one. He's had many other pen pals around the world and has had a huge impact on their lives as well.
Have you forgiven Quintin?
I have forgiven him. I love him very much.
Jones's great-aunt, Maddie Long, is the sister of his victim. She and her sister were extremely close.
What would you tell Governor Abbott if he's watching this interview?
I think the governor should spare him because he have changed and he's a different person than he used to be.
According to the nonprofit Death Penalty Information Center, in Texas, a death penalty case costs an average of $2.3 million, about 3 times the cost of imprisoning someone in a single cell at the highest security level for 40 years. Overall, support for the death penalty is declining in the U.S. According to a 2019 poll from Gallup, only 36% of Americans chose the death penalty when asked whether the death penalty or life without possibility of parole is the better penalty for murder.
When you look at a case like this one, really the only question is whether people believe that the death penalty is an appropriate kind of punishment for this particular set of facts.
Paul Cassell is a professor at the College of Law at the University of Utah.
You can make 2 arguments in support of the death penalty. One is the utilitarian argument that we can deter crime by imposing the most serious punishment for first-degree murder. And the other is the retributive argument that if we look backward, we want the punishment to fit the crime.
Republican Governor Greg Abbott has only granted clemency one other time to someone on death row.
I understand, too, that if I do get clemency, I know that instead of dying on the 19th, I may die years later. But it won't be in the free world. It'll be in prison. And I can accept that. because there's other avenues in prison that I can take to better myself and to better others along the way.
I just want to break the video down and get you to think about some things. So today is the 19th of May, and Mr. Jones is scheduled to be executed. He's scheduled to be executed sometime today, later in the evening, I'm guessing. And it seems like his family is still somehow hoping, praying that the governor will make a last-minute decision to grant him clemency. So I have a couple of questions. If you see me looking down, it's just because I just don't want to forget what I want to say. So at the very beginning of the video, Quintin is addressing the governor and asking him if he can find it in his heart to grant him a second chance at life. How does that make you feel? He brutally murdered a relative of his great aunt. And when he first said it, my initial reaction was, how dare you ask somebody to find it in their heart to give you a chance at life when you took somebody's life and you're asking someone to spare yours. That's a bit ironic. I don't necessarily agree with the death penalty, but I just thought that was interesting. If he is granted clemency, he would still have to stay in prison for the rest of his life. He wouldn't get out at any point, which I believe that would be the only option. You know, if they're going to take the death penalty off the table, which at this point, at the time of this recording, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But the question that I want to ask you guys is, do you think that he should be granted clemency? Because he's turned his life around and has developed into a different person, a better person over the last 21 years, should he be granted a stay of execution? He killed his aunt over $30. $30 for drugs. And obviously somebody who's on drugs, they're not in the right state of mind. Anyway, of course people change. 21 years is going to change you whether you're in prison or outside. I always say the only thing constant in life is change. So of course he's changed. Of course he has come to an understanding of some things. Is he truly remorseful for what he did? Who really knows? I don't think that there's any way that we can truly tell if somebody is remorseful, because I've seen people who really put on a show. They pretend that they're remorseful for the horrible things they do, and really it's just a matter of they're sorry because they got caught, or they regret the fact that they got caught and have to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Or in his case, maybe he regrets. I'm not saying that this is how he feels, but he could perhaps regret the fact that he's now sitting on death row. His pen pal and his aunt both feel that he has changed, which is great. I would love to see that a person has changed. In this particular chain of events, I do believe that this man probably has changed to see life from a completely different perspective. Personally, I do feel that he should be granted clemency, simply because I don't think that it should be an eye for an eye. They say an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. And just because he took somebody else's life, yes, that's a monstrous thing to do. Killing him is not going to bring back the person he murdered, and I believe that he still may have something that he can contribute while in prison. Somebody out there can still learn from his mistakes. He can touch somebody's life from behind a prison cell, believe it or not. Another key point from the clip that I found interesting was that it's 3 times more expensive to handle a death penalty case than it is to keep an inmate in a maximum security prison with the highest security for a period of 40 years. The ultimate question is, as tax-paying as tax-paying citizens, do we want to continue to shoulder that burden of housing these inmates, of having the option of the death penalty on the table? Is that something that we want to continue to do? Let me know what you guys think about that, because I'm really interested to see just in general what you guys think about this topic. The death penalty has been a point of contention amongst Americans, Republicans, Democrats. It's been it's one of those topics that nobody can really agree on, and so I definitely want to see what you guys have to say about it. At the very end of the video, I did catch, I would say, like a slick little comment from Mr. Jones where he said he does realize that if he is granted clemency, he still is going to die in prison. It's just going to be on a different day. Well, duh. You brutally murdered an old woman, your relative at that. So I wouldn't feel comfortable with you being out in society again. And I think that a lot of people would feel the same way. I am a strong believer that once you serve your time, you should be allowed to go back out into society and move forward with your life. But when it comes to murdering a family member or murdering a person in general, that's a little bit different. Well, it's not a little bit different, it's a lot different. I think that if you take somebody else's life, especially in those brutal cases where you unnecessarily bludgeon the person to death or shoot the person multiple times or torture a person to death, or those crazy cases like this one, I think that you should have to do the time. But no, I don't think that he should die. Today I want to know what you guys think. Leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.